Hi Megan, this is your final critique for Art 828 Creative Photography. I wanted to thank you for taking the class, and hopefully you got something out of it. I know reading your statements and communications with you, it sounds like you definitely have the struggles and health struggles, and I think it's nice that you were able to take that and try and create this portfolio to help us communicate and understand. And I think there's real value in that. All right. Well, looking at the images, that's what I see. I see you hooked up to this. I see a couple photographs of that, and my first impression was, why do we need two? But I think looking at and thinking about it, I think that's in value. You can almost include a third one to really kind of emphasize that point. I don't know how frequent it happens, but it sounds like you've got a fair amount of contact with your team of professionals in helping you through this. So certainly do wish you the best of luck in that process. Looking at the images and the body of work, as I was saying, we start to see, you very overtly visually show us this medical struggle and process. We also do see some of the emotional struggle and process. Hue here, as well as your child and what they also have to endure as you struggle. So I don't know, struggle, that's the right word. But okay, so with these images, I do also get a few here that seem to be not necessarily about something else, but certainly are a relief from having to consider this. I mean, it's got to, most of us, like myself, try to avoid the medical professionals as much as possible, but that's not possible in your case. And, that whole area fills most of us with some sort of anxiety. I don't even know about most of it. Maybe it's just me. So, you bring this to our attention, and I think it's important. But let's look at the photographs. I keep rambling on, saying the same thing. This image just has this nice emphasis of the form, and there's nice visual quality on here, a nice symmetry in how you've composed it. I also like the sort of vignetting, this strong vertical vignetting you add to the photograph. It really does help emphasize. It almost feels like an eye at this point or something. So there's a space, and I get that sense. It's the outside of the hospital, the clinic where you go, and it's a sort of a pretty presentation of it. It's a very aesthetic presentation of it. As is this. I don't know if this is the entryway or what it is, but it's this. I'd be curious to see what it looked like in color. I get a sense there's a lot of color in here. I don't think I would want it presented in color in this portfolio. I'm just curious to see the colors. But there's also a wonderful range of value. So many different midtones, light midtones, dark midtones, midtones, and all the variations in between them. And this nice vertical movement juxtaposed with this, sort of cylindrical grid around it. And it's really quite a nice image. Then I get a zoomed in, closer view of these things. And at this point I begin to, wonder, are we organizing this in a narrative quality, or are we looking at it more or less just trying to give the viewer a holistic presentation of it? So I don't know if this is a more process, and you don't really address that in your artist statement if you're trying to create a narrative of this process, or if you're just trying to give us a holistic presentation where we can look at it and consider the various parts of it, but not necessarily in a timeline organized narrative fashion. And it almost feels a little narrative at this point. And I don't know if that's the most effective way to present it. I love this photograph, by the way. But I do wonder, looking, zooming out at the whole image, if we need to break up these images with some more of these images. So, maybe we could start with that and then go to this and this. Um, and or I mean, it almost feels a little bit more narrative where you walk into the building, you see this, your child is there, you got this to consider space. Here's the process of this. Here are the pills. Here's something you go through. Struggling, testing, doing this again, and then just you, which is kind of a nice portrait at the end here where we don't see that necessarily struggle, and we don't see you in that medical facility. I do begin to question if I want this in this sort of narrative quality. I kind of would like to see it rearranged. I'm not sure if that's going to be stronger or better. But this repetition here, I don't know that it's doing anything for me. But I like the photographs, so I want to find out a way to make them work. Like this image and this image, there's a strong visual similarity between those two. And if they were perhaps juxtaposed next to each other, or maybe they need to be away from each other as they are, I don't know. Yeah, so, but this really is a lovely, beautiful, uplifting photograph. And then we get to this, and it feels more clinical. And there's a good composition here. I like the diagonal of this form, and even these are a slight diagonal. But all these hard rectilinear human-created objects, and their order, speaks of that hospital setting. And then, of course, seeing the child there associated as your child, and the waiting, and what they go through as this process, and mom going through this process, really makes us consider and feel for the child, and because they see the parents struggle and have to go through things, and they feel that. And I think they feel it more deeply than sometimes we think, or most people recognize. As parents, I think it's easier for us to recognize that, but most people are like, it'll be fine. I think it strikes them. And they don't always, at least maybe from my child's perspective, communicate those things very well. And this is similar to the photograph. I don't know if we need both of these images. Maybe there's something different there. Maybe I'm not looking at the details. Is this from the blood pressure cuff? Or is there vital information that's being communicated in here? Or maybe I just need to separate it out more from the previous image right here, because this is kind of sandwiched in between them. Maybe if I were to move it after this or something like that. I want to sprinkle these more pretty, beautiful images in here. I want to leave that one there and take this one and stick it here. And take that one and stick it maybe like near the end. All right, and then we have our sharps container and a nice reflection. It's probably a hard environment to photograph in, because your concern more is with your health, as it should be. But in trying to document this, or even express it, we can just document. And this, to me, I guess, feels more documentary. If we want to express a feeling in there, it'd be interesting if a face, either your face or your son's face, or the doctor's face, perhaps was, or the nurse's face, was reflected in that. A little bit of glass there. It could have added another element and a little more depth to this image. And, I'm sure that's hard to think about when you're there, because you're there, your thought processes are focused more on your health, as it should be. All right, so, and then, the drops, and running off the side here, they feel like tears. Looks like a painful process. So, but it's nicely composed. There's a nice negative space. There's, the movement, the drop there, and lines pushing up the eye, and the eyebrow, and the hair, and how they're all kind of working around that eye and creating that emphasis, and everything is emphasizing this point. It's a really well composed photograph. And then, the pills, I think, is somewhat, I guess, in similar in composition as this. And maybe that's what you're trying to force. I don't know that this is the answer. I'm not even sure that it will work very well, but you could look at diptychs where you just put the two images side by side, or in the case digitally where you put them on the same file, and we have to consider those images together. That might be another way to kind of to push things here. So, seeing this image, certainly getting a sense of the process. Like I like that the focus, I wish the fingers were just a little bit sharper. They're just slightly out of focus. Like focus is here, fingers are just back a little bit. They're certainly sharper than you, but I like the idea on how you approach this technically with the camera, trying to get that narrow depth of field. And you have a fairly high degree of success in the image, but I do wish that the hand was just a little, the fingers were just a little bit sharper. Would have helped push that feeling more. And then certainly we get a sense here, emotions. This image, I guess, to me is of all of them. I've used the word struggle, and this feels like a struggle. Contemplation, or maybe just sheer exhaustion. Who knows what you go through? I don't. I get some sense in the visuals, but this image communicates that feeling to me, and it's nice, and I like the composition of it, and I like what it shows to me emotionally, because of all those images, this one really strikes an emotional chord with me, and I think that's kind of what you want to do. You want us to feel that. You want us to be able to sympathize with you, and that previous image does that. This is actually a really lovely photograph. I love the textures and the values and the action, and then of course the symbolism relating to the testing. But it's just nice compositionally, but also nice symbolically. And that's probably what you're looking for in these images, is find that symbolism as well as the composition. And you do it well. The images are well composed, there's strong composition. There's a good consideration of photography and the camera and how it abstracts things, depth of field, composition, is good here as well. And then you see this sort of final image. And, it's interesting. It seems more like just a you photograph. And I like how the light, just radiates behind you. And there's a sense of success in here. I don't know if that's what you're feeling when you're making it, but there's like hope and success and some optimism. And your face expresses still some concern. But, so it's kind of nice, giving that viewer a sense. And as I'm reading down here, faith, family, friends, love help you carry on. I really feel stronger now than I've ever been, and very thankful because life is fragile. And I think we do get a sense of that fragility. We also get a sense of your sort of thankfulness, and you're moving on and living and succeeding. In that final image. So I think that's a very good final image. And I think the thing you need to consider in the end here is, do you want this narrative, or do we want to just kind of show the pieces of this, and the viewer can kind of puzzle that together? And I kind of think that the pieces are going to help the viewer more than this straight up. It almost feels like a narrative quality to this, because it's not just a story of one day, but it's a story of, as you said, struggling with it for 8 years. And, so it's not just a singular narrative, it's an everyday thing. And kind of putting it in that where we don't, you give me the pieces and the elements that you go through, but I don't have to consider it as just one time frame, because this goes on and on and on and on, right? It circles back, I don't know, every day, every week, every month, or whatever it is, your regimen. I think it would be stronger not narrative. And that, there's sort of a loose narrative here. And I don't know if, like I said, if that was your intent, and you don't tell me that narrative statement. But I would actually kind of try and move away from that narrative and make me see all these pieces sort of as individual, fresh elements that you go through, and then I can get a sense that there's just this repetition as opposed to a one-time sort of process in it, which the narrative gives me a little bit of feel for. I don't know. Be curious, that's the weakness of this format, as I sit here and talk, but I would really like to hear other people. And you got one comment from a student, and, except for taking the camera out of the hospital, that's your response. But yeah, Molly, powerful impact. I personally feel like this would have been very difficult to shoot. I would agree. I appreciate the editing of your photos is black and white. It unifies your photos. I think I agree with that. I can see you incorporate things from all the lessons in the class. I would agree with that too. And she does address the narrative as pretty impressive, and if the viewer isn't familiar with the topic, they'll learn a lot by looking at the photographs. So I think she thinks the narrative format is working, but like I said, this is the weakness here in this asynchronous format. I'd be curious to hear what other people say, and if we can look at these in different ways, shapes, and forms, to see what is more effective. Maybe this is the more effective format. All right. Anyways, in the end, thank you for going on this journey in this class with us. I hope you've got something out of it. Enjoyed seeing your images, and the best of luck to you. Let me know if you have any questions.